Hello my students, 5th grade, how are you today? Welcome again in Hadi Mohammad schools. Today's lesson is writing and you need to open your people's book page 102 and 103. And we have an outcome for today. Write a summary of a story. My students, please open your people's book page 102. Exercise number 1. Look at the story on pages 96 and 97 again and find and underline. First of all, my students, look at this picture. What can you see in this picture? Yes, we can see a man. Who is this man? Yes, he is the painter and his name is Cheng Li. Now, what is he doing? What is he doing? Excellent, he is painting. What is he painting? Excellent, he is painting a beautiful swan. Now, we have to underline and find the main characters in the story. Do you remember the main characters in this story? Yes, who are Cheng Li, Zhang Wei, and the assistant of the emperor. Number 2, the main event. Don't include unnecessary information like small details or explanations. Now we have to move to the story and we have to underline the main events. سوف نقوم بتحديد الأحداث الرئيسية التي حدثت في القصة and also don't include unnecessary information. First of all, my students, let us underline the main characters in this story. We have Emperor, and his name is Zhang Wei. And the second character, who is his assistant. And the third main character, who is Cheng Li, who's the painter. So we have 3 main characters, the emperor, his assistant, and the painter who is Cheng Li. Now let's underline the main events in this story. The first main event about Zhang Wei, and he was a strong, powerful man, and he was also kind and took care for others. And he had one problem, which is a bad temper. Also, the next main event, he asked his assistant who is the most famous painter in China, and he said Cheng Li is the most famous painter in China. After that, he asked him to his palace. He's invited him to his palace and asked him to paint a picture with of a swan for him. After 1 year, Zhang Wei visited Cheng Li in his room at the palace, and Cheng Li didn't finish the perfect swan yet, and the painter asked the emperor to give him another year. He said, could you please come in another year? And the emperor gave him another year. But the painting still wasn't ready. So Zhang Wei was furious from the painter, and the painter asked the emperor to give him another year. And after the year, Zhang Wei came to collect the painting, but Cheng Li came with a large sheet of paper and put them on the table, and he took a brush and some ink. Also, he painted the most beautiful swan. So also this is key event. But Jiang Wei is still furious for that, and he sent Cheng Li to far away, and he asked him never to turn to China. Also, after a week, the servants found thousands of paintings of Swan. And finally, he sent a message to Cheng Li to say sorry and asked him to come back to China. And at the end, he became as Emperor's royal painter. So these are the main events in this story. Now let's move to the second activity. This chart will help you write a summary of a story. Work in pairs to complete it with note about the perfect swan. Here we have to complete the chart to have a summary of a story. First of all, sum 1. Here you have to write who are the main characters. Also, what do we need to know about them. سوف نقوم هنا بكتابة الشخصيات الرئيسية وأيضا المعلومات الأساسية عنهم. And we can answer this question about the main characters: a Chinese emperor, his assistant, and the best painter in China. These are the main characters in the story. Now here we have the word wanted. What did the emperor want? What did he want? Yes, excellent. You can say a Chinese emperor, he wanted a painting of a swan. So, what did the emperor do? Yes, excellent. He asked the best painter to paint one for him. But what was the problem? What was the problem with the emperor? Yes, excellent. After 3 years, the emperor was still waiting for his painting, and he was furious. Then, what happened in the end? In the end of the story, the artist painted a perfect swan in 2 minutes. The emperor was astonished, but he was still furious and sent the painter to another country. So these are the main events in the story. Now move to the next activity. Read the summary of another story. Answer the questions. Here, my students, we have a summary of another story, and we have to answer the questions. The questions are: number 1, do you think it's a good summary? Why and why not? Number 2, what information do you think is the most important? Find and underline it. Let us firstly read the summary of the story. Once there was a poor farmer. He didn't have any money, and he was hungry all the time. One day, he discovered a special goose on his farm. The goose was fat with lots of white feathers. Every day, it laid a golden egg. The eggs were beautiful and shiny, and the farmer was very happy. The farmer sold the eggs and became rich. He had food and a warm house, and he didn't have to work on his farm anymore. But he was very greedy. He didn't want to wait for just 1 egg each day. He wanted all the golden eggs at once. The farmer opened the goose's mouth. He reached deep inside the goose to find more golden eggs, but there weren't any. After that, the goose never laid another golden egg. And the main events in this story are: once there was a poor farmer, and then one day he discovered a special goose on his farm. And we can underline also the main event, which is every day it laid a golden egg. Also we have the farmer sold the eggs and became rich. But he was very greedy and he wanted all the golden eggs at once. Also, the farmer opened the goose's mouth. He reached deep inside the goose to find more golden eggs. But there weren't any. Also, this is an important event. After that, the gooses never laid another golden egg. So this is the summary of the story. Now let's answer the previous questions. Do you think it's a good summary? Why and why not? Yes, it is a good summary because we don't give details or unnecessary events in this summary. Number 2, which information do you think is the most important? Find and underline it. We underlined the important events and the important information for this story. Now move to number 4. Work in pairs. Use your notes from activity 2 to write a summary for the perfect swan using no more than 100 words. Here, my students, you have to write a summary for the perfect swan story according to activity number 2. And you have to begin your summary with: once there was a Chinese emperor. He wanted a painting of a swan, so he asked the best painter to paint one for him. After 3 years, the emperor was still waiting for his painting and he was furious. Then the artist painted a perfect swan in 2 minutes. The emperor was astonished, but he was still furious and sent a painter to another country. Then the servants found thousands of paintings of a swan. The painter had practiced every day until he could paint the perfect swan. The emperor apologized to the painter, who returned to live in the palace. So my students, this is the summary of the perfect swan story. Try to write the summary in your notebooks and don't forget to send it for me. That's all for today. Thank you very much. See you next class. Goodbye.